Just a disclaimer. Not every one of my interviews will be with a whale. But then, to call my next guest a whale would be a massive understatement. Why? Because he's a kraken. Bottom of the ocean, top of the food chain. And his power? Well, it's everything you imagine. But his insight may surprise you. Hey everyone, it's Nightlight9, and for this video I sat down with one of the highest powered players in Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. We're talking hundreds of thousands of combat power. And yes, I said hundreds with an S. Does he need any more of an introduction than that? I don't think so either. So without further ado, I want to introduce my friend and resident member of the Painblade Discord, Alkaiser. Hey man, how's it going?
Going good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm really excited to do this. So I want to dive right in on this one. And the first thing I have to ask is, can we see your highest combat power team? And can you walk us through what goes into a team this big?
Yeah, sure. Let me get it pulled up here, and just a disclaimer for this team for anybody, looking at the team. This is not in any way a team that we would use to clear content. It's just purely a flex. So basically, a team like this is what I consider fake power. The team itself has no bearing outside of showing off. This big, huge power number you see here, 450,729. I wouldn't personally use this team to do any serious content in the game. Although, if any of the fights I'm doing are weak to any of the elements that these particular characters are geared towards, it doesn't mean they won't be effective. They will definitely smash. This Sephiroth would smash anything weak to ice, as will this Cloud and to thunder, and this Aerith to wind.
What are the what are the materias and some of the sub weapons look like on some of these?
Yeah, sure. So I think let's go into Sephiroth, since he's clearly the biggest out of the bunch. So your weapons pretty much are going to be the same amongst all of the people who build characters like this. So any of your whales, krakens, if you're trying to build like a bloat type scenario where you're just showing off, it's all going to be the same, and that all stems from the R abilities, right? So with the R abilities, you can see there's not many. We only have 5, but you have a maxed out boost attack. You have the costume, which of course is huge. You have a maxed out ice potency almost. 100, I believe, is impossible to get right now. You have a maxed out boost attack, and then you have some fire potency. But I think that particular ability is negligible in the calculation. So when you're looking at the main weapons, we have our edged wings. We have the prototype Crimson Blade. That one's for the attack R ability. So we're only using it strictly for boost attack. Our sub weapons, we're using Matt's Absolute Royal. You got your M attack. You got boost ice. We have Aerith's Silver Staff, boost attack, boost ice. And then you have Cloud's Enhanced Sword, boost attack, boost ice. So I mean, a ton of boosting of the ice potency, boosting of attack, magic attack. And as far as if you're going for like a bloat scenario like this, you'll notice that these weapons are level 90. Your normal player isn't going to max out these weapons to 90 under most circumstances. Maybe edge wings because it's a primary weapon for Sephiroth. But you're not going to go in and max out a level 90 enhanced sword just because. But I will tell you that some of these weapons, it's important to note when you're doing this particular account, the stats on a weapon. So all of these weapons on the character aren't just boosting the R abilities of the character. They're not just boosting the power calculation, but also the main stat that character uses, which is the M attack, right? So if you look here, he has 4,252 M attack. That's your sub weapons, your main weapons, but the real kicker is the materia. This is what's going to make or break your bloat. If I were to take off just one of these materia, look how it drastically affects the power. I'm just going to switch it to this thunder materia. 137,000. So that is a drop of
20K.
20,000 just from one materia. And you can pick any of these materia and do the same thing. Look, 141 down from 157, so that's 16K. So just between these two materia alone, that's almost 30,000 in power. And then we have another one here, 143. So that's another 14K.
And
So
what
let's round it up and say 50,000 power for the sake of argument, just coming from materia itself.
can you show us what
So you
one of the
take,
percentages are in one of those materials?
yeah, absolutely. There you
Okay.
go.
And so that would have a lot to do because you already have high base stats. So then taking
Right.
away all these percentages essentially is just really dropping that combat power number.
Exactly. Yeah, 5% M attack. You have your 5.2 HP. So that's that one in particular. This one is pretty similar, a little bit lower, right? So we have M attack HP. And then the last one, I believe, is this is just the normal, typical 3-star Blizzard material. There's nothing really special about it. It rolled a little bit high on the M attack. But overall, you look at this material, and as a player, you'd probably be like, it's okay, right? But this particular Blizzard materia, for the purposes of my account, based on where the stats are and how diminishing returns affect the calculation power, I can't get anything higher on this account, no matter what I select. So let's go in here just to show you. And we're going to filter just by ice materia, and I'll explain why I'm doing that real quick. So when you are doing power calculation, this game has this weird calculation where if you're using the same materia of the same element, it gives you a higher boost in power, even if the stats are better on a different materia. But so this is the materia I have on right now. I have a ton of other materia. Nothing I have will beat that 3-star blue materia. And I have a ton of 4-star Blizzards. I've been trying for a long time to just replace that blue materia so that I don't have any more blue materia on Sephiroth. And as you can see, nothing beats it.
Is that
And it's
do you think that's a like some sort of error on the algorithm that calculates power, or do you have any idea why that works that way?
it has to deal with the fact that the power calculation at some point delivers diminishing returns. So many players in the community believe that HP has the biggest impact on power, and it does. It does have an impact on power, but when you reach a certain degree of a stat, adding more of that stat, you see less and less return on. So that's that diminishing return, right? So I'm at the point right now where if I get more hit points on a materia, it might boost my power. But even now, heal is actually boosting my power more than any magic attack is. And I have materia that has more M attack than any of these three. My best materia on my account from a magic attack perspective is actually this Thundara Blow, 8.1% M attack. It will easily increase all of the stats on this Sephiroth, as you can see here.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
lowers my power because it's not a Blizzard materia.
You know,
Uh,
this is a really great moment here. I'm so happy to see this. And the reason is, a lot of times there's we like to talk about how like combat power is not the end all be all. It is actually not really the determining factor in whether or not your team's good or if a loadout is better than another one, right? Because of the way that the game chooses to calculate this power. A lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the ideal setup most of the time might have less total combat power for a particular character.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, 99.9% of the time, you're not even gonna have the proper materia on a character when you're building. So like when I'm building a team that I'm using to fight with, this Thundara Blow materia is gonna be on that character. It's gonna be on a magic character. I'll never use the Thundara Blow, but statistically, it's what's going to make that character stronger. Just like this fire material right here. This one was another lucky roll. Has 8.1% M attack, and look, 154,000. It dropped my power, even though my M attack went up by 200, just because it wasn't a Blizzard material. So yeah, you definitely have to ignore the power stat when you're building your team, and focus on what's going to give you the win.
No, that makes
And
a lot of sense. And okay, so I guess the next logical question, and it's one that's got to be on everybody's mind, and sort of a two-parter, is this. What is the motivation behind going for such an insane level of power? And along with that, what do you get out of this and out of playing Ever Crisis?
Sure. So, I mean, I think everyone's opinion differs on why a Kraken or whale plays the game. I think most will say we want it easy or we don't want a challenge, so we accelerate our accounts to a level in which the game can no longer challenge us. Now, somewhere out there that may hold merit. There might be somebody out there who just doesn't likes to have it easy and just beat everything in 2 seconds. But for me personally, the motivation is having the capability to theory craft and have the ability to find out of the box ways to complete content. This mindset may not actually hold any merit for most players. They're just going to pull on what they can and clear the game with what they end up with. However, with the way the overboost functions, I mean, at some point, players are going to catch up weapon wise, and then it'll come down to knowing the ins and outs of customization, how to properly set up your team for success for the fight you're attempting to clear. And I don't, in any way mean that a Kraken or Well will never have the upper hand because, they are going to, because as the game power creeps, of course, you're going to get those weapons. But eventually, all of the weapons are going to be OB10 at some point, whether it be a year from now, 2 years from now. So I get a lot of fun out of Ever Crisis because of the customization of our abilities and the diversity amongst all the characters, being able to, you know, just going through some of my teams here. So like I have a Cloud Water team that makes sure that Cloud is the focus. We have this is my team that I use for farming Nano, but it could be used for pretty much any team that requires a lightning based DPS to clear. Physical lightning DPS because you have that aspect of it to know about as well. If I'm just doing a stage over and over that requires all AoE, I have an AoE team. This was a team long time ago from like the first dungeon we were doing. This is the fire team for Gino. This is a Aerith lightning build. So like there's tons of different ways you can customize the characters. And for me personally, being able to customize all of the characters differently gives me the strength of being able to share that information with everybody. Hey, like I tried out this Aerith lightning build or wind build or whatever build it is.
Well, and
It works.
kind of a cool example as well was even just what you showed us a while back, with that materia and how the game actually starts to assign random things, as far as when it's thinking about the power calculations. There's no way I would have known that based on my account because I can't get high enough to where the game starts to do that on a significant level.
Right. Yeah, it's so weird and mind-boggling how a fire materia with 5% more M attack is lowering the power of my character. It's something to definitely keep your eye on when you're playing. Never use this button. This button is horrible. It is an evil button. I mean, if you truly are lazy and you can do it, but I mean, it's it's not going to make you clear content.
Speaking of, clearing content, and we've talked about the game for a while prior to doing this interview, and you had
hmm
mentioned some things. One of the things that I wrote down in quotes was rotation. Can you explain that concept as far as how it goes into team fights and how you use that concept?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of MMO guys are going to know what rotation is. I have a huge MMO RPG background. I played World of Warcraft since it started, Final Fantasy 11, 14. I played in some of the top builds on both of those games at the highest level, so I consider myself to be above average player when it comes to executing rotations. So with that being said, similar to like any MMO, all of these fights are structured with a rotation for everything, whether it be you or the actual enemy you're fighting. So it allows us the capability to memorize every aspect of the fight and be prepared for every part of it. This becomes especially important for crash fights or the high EX fights. Management of your ATB, active time bar, becomes actually the second most important aspect of the actual fight. First being your knowledge of what the boss is going to do. And then after that, knowing the rotation of your character's abilities and switching between characters then become extremely important. Let's use the waltz fight, for example. Now, this isn't the particular team that I used for the waltz. My cloud was structured a little bit different. So when that fight started, we all knew that waltz was going to do back to back tri elemental. So I knew at the beginning of the fight, I had enough time in my rotation based on the ATB to activate Sephiroth's weapon to put the M attack down on all three of them, and to switch to Cloud very quickly and do Sanctuary to give my entire team magic defense. Between the two of those abilities, it made those enemies hit like a wet noodle. But having the knowledge that that ability was coming up, and having the knowledge of my characters and knowing how much time I had to do both of those abilities was absolutely important to be able to survive that with lower stats. I have 5,000 HP on my Cloud. I can get away with that because I had a triple magic defense buff and a second tier magic attack debuff on the enemy. And to be fair, let me show you here. I'm actually going to build Cloud how I had him for the fight, so that people could see, how I actually did the fight. And granted, I know, we can say, oh, well, he has all the weapons maxed out, so it's, easy for him to do. Sure, yes. But let's say you didn't, right? And you wanted to do something similar. So I had Sanctuary, and sure, yeah, I have all of the weapons maxed out. That did not stop me from optimizing my characters. This is how my materia looked on Cloud. I
Nice.
prioritized magic defense because, like in any game, you don't do any damage dead. So M defense 141. I left everything else the same because at that point I didn't really have to change anything else because I had the survivability and the damage, right?
Hmm.
So we talked a little bit earlier about the fight and how you need more damage to clear it than survivability.
Yeah,
So
it's
if
kind
you're
of
in a
like a
scenario,
two-stage process.
right. So if you're in that scenario where you're going to survive, like, I mean, 141 M defense, you probably don't even need Sanctuary at that point. You probably only need Tifa to put M attack down maybe on one enemy and you're surviving. So then at that point, you have to optimize the rest of your weapons, and everything for damage.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that's how he was. And then same thing for him. Take all the bloat away, all the power, right? And this is how much M defense we had on Sephiroth. 137. So I did that for all three of my characters. They were all in the 130 to 140 range for M defense. I sacrificed a ton of damage to make sure that my M defense was high. Like Seph's M attack just dropped by like 700. And I think one of the most useful resources that the game ever gave us was the free to play weapons, and that's one of the only reasons I was able to complete the most recent Iron Crash, because you needed physical defense, So
Yes, the Lepko, Kipseli, and the Tornwing.
yeah,
Very
I mean
good
they're
defensive weapons. Okay, so knowing that you like to tinker with these builds and team setups, I also want to point out that in our discussions about the game, you actually taught me quite a few things and helped me look at my team setups differently. Specifically, you explained some very interesting ideas on AI manipulation, both with skills
yes.
such as Curaga as well as materia setup. And I think everybody could benefit from that same explanation. So could you kind of explain that strategy to us?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. I'm humbled to be able to help somebody. Let's take a look at that. What does that look like? So let me find any team. Doesn't matter who it is. All right. We're going to build Aerith. So let me actually do this to make it easier. This is how I do every fight, by the way. This is my starting screen, and this is exactly what I do every single time. Do you see this character? She goes right into my party. This is the best character in the game, but we could definitely touch on that later on. So we have most of us, if not all of us, have Aerith as our healer. So we're gonna have Fairy Tail, and then most of us, if not all of us, use Umbrella. If you don't use Umbrella, you're probably using the Mythril Rod, or some other type of support weapon. But for this example, we're going to use Umbrella. So these are the two weapons that we have equipped. So we have Kiraga A++, Night Bloom++. Sub weapons don't matter. All we're talking about is what our character is going to do.
When you're
So
not
right
controlling
now,
it.
when you're not controlling it, exactly. So first and foremost, if you are not controlling your healer, I strongly suggest that every player always control their healer. Most players, I can't speak for everybody, run Aerith as their healer. But no matter if it's Aerith, Matt, Tifa, or Cloud, Who you decide to use as your healer is up to you, but it's extremely important you control it. So for this example, we're going to use Aerith. Now you're going to set up your materia. So what are you using? You might go and you might put breaches or ruins or elemental materia that you use for the fight. So, you're excited, you're going into this fight, the enemy is weak against water, right? Or let's just say ice. So now you're like, all right, let me get my Blizzera materia. They're like, okay, cool. Aerith needs to be able to heal if somebody's low on HP. Let me get my Cura materia. So you got your Cura materia. And then you're like, okay, he needs X sigil. So let's go in here. We're going to get X sigil and boom. Now my X sigil's hooked up. Bam, my Aerith is prepared. She can do everything. She can AoE heal. She can single target heal. She can hit the boss for ice weakness because the boss is weak for ice. And then when the sigil pops up, she can also break the sigil. Best Aerith in the game. Wrong. Worst Aerith in the game. So what's going to happen is when you switch off of Aerith to go to any other character, Aerith is going to use all of these other abilities in any way that's beneficial to the fight at that moment. So the boss is weak to Blizzard. You have 5 ATB bars saved up. You switch over to Cloud because you want to smash the boss with something. The AI is going to use this Blizzard materia because the boss is weak to Ice. You now just wasted 3 ATB bars and don't have enough to heal. Same thing with Ruin. And I'm not saying not to equip Ruin. You definitely need it to break sigils, but you typically only need 2 of them to break a sigil. The third is just to do it a lot quicker. She typically is not going to cast the Ruin unless the sigil phase is going on anyway. So Ruins can tend to be the exception. So this is why you want to set this up in a very specific way. So that ice boss that's weak to ice, if it says he's strong against earth, what are we doing? We're going to actually put on an earth materia. And you can leave the rest of this as you wish, but my suggestion is you're going to take this off. And the reason why you're going to take this off, and we're just going to put another earth materia, is because of the way ATB management is. So now we have 2 earth materia and a ruin materia. So now what's going to happen is when you're doing a fight, when you switch off of Aerith, he's not going to use these abilities because the AI knows that the boss is weak against ice, but resistance against earth. So now your AI is actually saving your ATB. And then the ruin materia, she'll use this in the sigil phase, but she won't use it outside of the sigil phase unless it's ruin materia based on her stat. So if she's magic attack, what did I select? I selected a blow. So she's not going to use it because my P attack's very low. So yeah, so this is how you're gonna be able to save your ATB when you're switching characters, but you're still gonna be controlling this character 99% of the time because the AI does not know how to heal properly.
Right. And the reason I thought this was so important is because whenever I get into a fight, one of the first things I do, and primarily throughout the fight, is I'm controlling Aerith. But the moment I switch off, and I'm hoping that she's going to build that ATB so that when he does his AoE move, I pop back over to her and cast my Curaga, just like you said, only to find that she has decided that she was also going to chip in on the damage and let my team basically suffer because she doesn't know what's about to come up in the rotation like I do.
Right. And then your team dies because you don't have any heal, or your team's maybe at 80%. And she's just not casting Curaga because the AI doesn't believe they're damaged enough to cast Curaga. Because Curaga, I don't know the exact percentages, and I can't speak on behalf of it because I don't want to give out incorrect information. But there are thresholds for when she casts Curaga. And I believe, personally, those thresholds have to be 2 or more moderately damaged characters or 1 critically damaged character before the AI will trigger a heal. Because there's been times I've been at like 75, 80% health on all 3 characters, and she's just sitting there just throwing blizzards out. I'm going to kill this boss with my 3k blizzards that are doing nothing whatsoever to the boss. And then the boss goes and does some AoE attack and kills my entire team because I didn't have that extra 20% health.
But by the same token, if you put, let's say, a Asuna on anybody that's, let's say, not your healer, but it's a single target heal, they will use that as a heal, even when let's say somebody's down, 1,500 HP and they've got 8,000 in the bank. I always find that they will, if you switch stances to defense, then you've got your other characters that are going to, cast this low potency heal. So this is
Yep.
I think, very useful.
Absolutely, and the Asuna heals are the worst because your DPS will just start using them out of nowhere, and then now you're wasting ATB that way. And I'm not saying the Asunas themselves aren't useful because they do merit times where you have to use them. Like the most recent dungeon with all the poison, I
Yes,
had Asuna poison on my characters just because
same.
yeah, you needed it. You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
but in most cases you'll be fine just putting the Asuna on Aerith, and then just using it when you need to. You're controlling your ATB on Aerith, so she's always gonna have full bars. You'll always be able to heal when you need to heal, not when the computer deems it necessary. And especially when you're just using Fairy Tail as a weapon. Once again, if you don't hit those criterias that the AI is looking for, she's not gonna cast it. You can have a full team and one character at 50% health, and she'll just keep going with those blizzards. And then once that character hits like red in health, then she'll be like, "Oh, I need to cast Kiraga," but that character's already done for to begin with.
Yeah, and I've noticed that if you're running the game, in manual, like I think a lot of us do, she really doesn't even like to do it then unless you switch stances for her.
Exactly. Yep.
So we've done a lot of talking about weapons and how to build stronger people. Now, obviously, you aren't free to play or light spender, but as I think we've shown, having so many weapons at max power allows testing that smaller players just can't do. So if we're looking at the long game, say 6 months, a year out, whatever it might be, what advice would you give about weapon building for long-term power gain? Or to put it another way, what should we be aiming for?
You know, That's a really hard question because everybody plays the game for different cause. And a player's timeline of choices could be triggered by many different things. Maybe a fan favorite release, such as a crossover event like FF9, or their favorite character's weapon being released. And this could cause a player to use all their gems and funnel them into something that may not benefit their account, but at the end of the day, it's what made them happy. Maybe this FF9 is a crossover is like one particular player's dreams and wishes because they're the biggest FF9 fan and they just want all of the costumes and all of the weapons. That's fantastic. And that player is going to enjoy themselves and they're going to have fun, pulling on all of the banners. But, if you're looking for account progression, maybe that's not the right mindset to have. So my very biased opinion, and I think you and I like sort of came on into almost an agreement on this particular thing I'm about to say is as somebody who is looking for a future, I would focus on one character, and that character is Aerith. You could love her or hate her, but she is the number one best character in the game. I mean, you saw me. I created a team, and the first thing I did was put this character into my team. She's just so strong, and everything they released for her only makes her stronger, with the exception of the most recent banner. But we could touch on that if you want. This character is so ridiculously versatile. Heals, support, you can make the materia, especially if you're controlling her, you can make this character an all-in-one package. She can decrease the defense and the magical defense of a character and still do damage with the ability, which is insanity. She is the best character. This is what my focus would be if I have all of the knowledge going into this game. I'm not saying all your wish list weapons should be this character, but these two weapons need to get. You have to get them. This will change your account. These two weapons. You will clear content that you were unable to clear prior because of these two weapons.
Well, since you mentioned it, now I'm going to ask you a bonus question. You referenced the banner, and so since we are in the middle of the FF9 crossover collab and still have 3 banners that people can pull on, what are your thoughts on these banners? Which weapons and costumes excite you the most, and which ones, if any, do you find disappointing?
Man, I'm gonna get so much crap about this on the Discord server. I'm not a fan of any of these banners. I'm gonna try and not be negative because I have to think about everything, right? Nostalgia, account progression, player counts, what a player is potentially missing. But I'm gonna give my honest 100% opinion. I think that all of these banners are not good right now, with the exception of Sephiroth, and even that one in particular is debatable. And the reason for that is because these banners only hold merit in the current content we're doing now, which is Waltz. And you can say, oh, well, Alka, that water weapon I used in the last, event was only good for that water event. And partially that's true, but we have other content in this game that you will need that water weapon for, even if you're doing something like synthesis quests. And I'll do my dailies. Don't get on top of me for not doing my dailies. All right, I just logged in. But look, you need all of the elements for this farm. So there's that water weapon. You might need it to farm lightning synthesis, but you won't need that non-elemental damage to farm this. These non-elemental weapons, they probably won't see play as a secondary weapon or even a sub-weapon in most cases for most players, and in most players' examples, they already have something that has those R abilities on them anyway. Cloud's weapon, for example, right? 1300% attack, woohoo, that's great. Our abilities are P attack and physical attack, but Matt's weapon has the same exact R abilities. So we had just last month the ability to get these R abilities.
Are you referring which Matt weapon, just for everybody out there?
Killer Hornet.
Okay.
We have the Cloud weapon, and then we have Matt's Killer Hornet, and we'll see the difference between the two really quick. And I won't take too long on these weapons, right? So we have Killer Hornet, 554, 465, Zidane, 561, 448. So yeah, higher base stats, cool. Not by much. I mean, it's a 7. And then 40, 36, 40, 36. It's the same R abilities. So I could have pulled for it last month and got Killing Slash, or I could have pulled for it this month and got Free Energy. Both, by the way, are non-elemental, and both are never used as a main weapon or a sub-weapon. They're strictly used as R ability stat sticks, for lack of better words. Even, Tifa's weapon, boost HP, boost visibility. It's great. But, once again, the R ability is, if you're trying to build an offensive character, boost HP as a main stat on a weapon isn't going to offensively benefit that character. Defensively, it will absolutely, but you can use this as a sub weapon. It does 1300 damage, but in the state of the game, it's non-elemental damage. There's no way to boost that damage outside of random elements, such as critting. We have, physical ability boost and ability boost, but those percentages also stack on elemental potency multipliers. So if you're using a water weapon, you will get those bonuses as well and see those numbers grow and grow, whereas on a non-elemental, you won't. Tifa's weapon, once again, it's a great weapon. I mean, the weapon itself can boost her attack. If you have it at OB6, it's 30%, I believe. But there's an overlying issue of only having 2 of her weapons to boost the damage on. She has Motor Drive, which is a wind elemental, and then Dive Kick, which is once again a non-elemental. So, great weapon, no place for it right now. So I'm not saying that the weapon is awful in the future, but as a player who's playing this game for the content that's releasing, you're sort of playing for like what's in your face right now, right? And you can save forever and you can pull Amaranth's Claws right now, and 7 banners from now, it could be the best weapon in the game, or it could stay there and never be used ever. But right now, it doesn't have a place on Tifa outside of boosting Wind Element, and the problem with that is she doesn't have a costume for Wind. So she's never going to surpass the King of Wind, which is Sephiroth, even with that attack boost. Aerith's banner? Oh god, I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, outside of the nostalgia, obviously, if you're pulling for the costume and the way it looks, and the weapon and the way it looks, look, by all means. But this weapon and this costume in no way progressed my personal account and a lot of other people I spoke to. The weapon, there's no place for it. You just heard me say, if I'm focusing on my Aerith, I'm getting Fairy Tail and I'm getting Umbrella. Where do I have the ATB to use Healing Pulse? It's 4 ATB. If I'm using this, I'm not healing. If I'm using this, I'm not lowering with a breach. I'm not lowering the M defense or the physical defense. There's no place in her kit right now for this. It doesn't do any damage. It puts a regen, but I mean, 3 ticks goes off every 3 seconds. 3 ticks. So I mean, boost HP once again offensively, not going to fix the character. The
Well,
costume has heal and HP on it, but we already have her other costume which has heal on it. So
yeah, and my personal opinion on, let's say, Garnet's rod is, it boosts the magic attack, and a lot of people, I did a video not too long ago talking about how Aonibi, for example, if you don't have it at high potency, you're actually literally missing out on damage instead, by using that instead of using, another attack. And so a lot of people thought, oh, okay, but this, if I do it on Aerith, well, then he's not missing out on that attack. But I think for me, the problem is boosting another ally's magic attack and being a dedicated healer don't really jive with each other. I feel like that's kind of a job of a different character. Do you have
right.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the weapon has no place with her given kit. I hate to say it, and like I said, it's a very negative thing to say because it's like me saying, "Oh well, she should have never gotten that weapon." But in all reality, she really shouldn't have. She has everything she needs to be successful as a character right now. That love should have been given to somebody else. If you're going to make, these support weapons that boost stats, whether it be defense, attack, give them to the characters that could truly benefit from that role. Maybe you're running a healer debuffer, and then you're running a buffing character that specifically their job is to focus on making the party stronger, and then you have your damage dealer. Okay, so now you're giving 3 roles, everybody has a role, they know their job. But once again, that ability is not doing any damage. It's increasing the future damage, but it's only increasing the future damage for one character, and it has to match that character's stat. So if it's magic, I can't use Cloud. Cloud is doing physical lightning damage, so I can't boost his damage with Aerith. And then if I put Glenn in there and use his attack up one, it's the same thing. Like, sure, he's buffing Cloud, but that's all the benefit that we're getting from it. And quite frankly, you could just do more damage just using an ability in its place. And I think you focused that in one of your other videos. When you did the Nobi versus just attacking, right?
Yes.
So it's all the same concept, but you're just using a buff weapon instead, and you're not really gaining true benefit from it. You're just wasting ATB. And for me, like her costume, I'm sorry, it just we got Chocobo suit for free. This is your HP if that's what the people are pulling on the costume for. Sure, it has heal, but she has another heal outfit here you can get.
And
You
so
could even get HP from this if you got the Sunny Robe.
so on the last part of the banner, what do you think about the Sephiroth banner?
So Sephiroth's all right. Sephiroth's weapon has to be by far the strongest debuffing weapon in the game. There's no question. I mean, look at this. At its base level, right? You're doing a mid attack down and a mid physical attack down if your HP is high enough, right? But come on, let's be real. Your HP is probably going to be high enough because if your HP is below 50%, the AI is controlling your healer.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
point.
so the even at it's normal base stat you got mid. Even when you get into the hires, it's still mid, but it can go to high, right? So mid, so 2 tiers minimum, 3 tiers maximum on one weapon, and it hits the whole range of enemies. Absolutely fantastic weapon. The only problem is it's on the wrong character. This weapon, just like Aerith's weapon has no place on Seth. He's a great character. He does a lot of damage with many, many elements. I can build Sephiroth right now just based on his weapons now. I could build him as an ice damage dealer, which most people are going to do because this ability to this day is still very, very, very good. I could build him as physical wind if I want. I can build him as lightning AoE. I could build him as fire AoE. So he has so many different elements that you can hit on. He even has single target non-elemental damage for magic, right? And you go and you put this fantastic debuff weapon on such a great damage dealing character.
I would say he's the most versatile elemental damage dealer.
Absolutely. Versatile elemental damage dealer, and you put a debuff on him. So if you're debuffing, when do you have the time to deal damage? You just wasted 8 ATB putting 5 M attack and P attack down on the enemy. when you could have done 2 aerial frostblade plus pluses and did 800%. So I just think that the weapon is fantastic. I believe they should have gave that weapon to Tifa. Tifa deserved that weapon, and Amaranth Sephiroth deserved. If you flip those 2 weapons and you put those 2 weapons on the characters that we're talking about now, Sephiroth becomes the undeniable best win character in the game. Tifa then keeps her role of being the best debuffer in the game because she is. She strongly holds that role, and I think even now, even with the release of this weapon, the new weapon on the banner, she still holds this role as the best debuffer in the game.
I think so too, and the reason I think that is because obviously it takes 2 different weapons for her to do both magical and physical attack down, but she also has the somersault, so she can do magic and physical defense down, which just,
Right.
what else do you actually want?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know why they created this weapon. This weapon's ridiculously broken, and it's crazy because you're like, "Ow," but you're telling me this is like the best weapon in the game. Well, it is. I'm just telling you, it's on the wrong character. That's all. This is probably the one weapon I would pull for. I did pull for this weapon. When we're looking at the other weapons, Zidane and Amaranth Claws, I did pull for these weapons, but these weapons were not pulled because I needed them to progress in any way. It was for Bloat. I know that sounds crazy, but it was to make my max power team bigger because our abilities on the Zidane sword were necessary to do so. I did not pull on this banner at all. Yes, the
Wow.
Kraken did not pull.
That takes a lot, right?
I had people saying, "Hey, you're definitely gonna pull. Like, there's no way you're not gonna pull on the banner." Like, I didn't pull. I still to this day look.
Is that the first banner weapon that you haven't taken to OB10?
It's the first banner weapon I have not taken to OB10. I do not own the weapon at all. I don't own the costume. I did not pull on the banner at all.
Wow. All right.
Um,
Well, I think that was a very good comprehensive answer to that. And those were all the questions that I had for you today. Is there anything that for whatever reason I didn't cover that you wanted to go over, or can we call that a wrap?
Yeah, I mean, there's just one more thing. It's just like the crossover event. I think it was cool. It's great that we're going to implement these other Final Fantasies into a game that we all thought was just going to be Final Fantasy VII. So I think it's cool that they're able to implement these different games into it. I would say if we're speaking to the devs, I would say let's try and just keep on this 2 character banner, 2 weapon deal. The single banners, they were cool, but so you can see right here, look, 0 out of 12, 1 card. Um,
The proof.
but the reality is that as a player, I'm going to use more resources pulling on single banners than I am on a multiple banner. So if both the Aerith and the Seph weapons were on the same banner, now when I pull, I at least have the ability to get both weapons and just one of them. If you're going for the costume, at least if you're pulling up to 12 stamps, you're getting both a chance at both weapons, not just one weapon. I mean, you could play devil's advocate and say, "Oh, but Alk, I get my wish list weapons." Like, true, you do, but you're gonna get your wish list weapons on this one too, which had 2 weapons. Overall, I'd say the event was probably lackluster. I thought that they could have did a little bit more with the story, made it more interactive. But hey, it's their first crossover event. We got to give them some grace, and hopefully, when they go into other Final Fantasies, we can see some improvement and stuff. So.
I couldn't agree more. I just want to say at this point that I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me. And I think that there's a ton of valuable information that you put in here. So, again, thank you for taking that time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you all in Payne's Discord. And keep on keeping on, guys. I mean, this is a marathon, not a race. And if you guys need help clearing any content, I'm always here to do carry runs and help out or give advice.
All right, and that'll wrap up my interview with Alkaiser, the Kraken. I'd like to know what you guys thought. This is quite a bit longer form than we've normally done, but personally, I enjoy that, but I'd like to know what you think. So definitely leave me some comments telling me what you thought of this. If you found this helpful, subscribe for future content. And as always, thanks for watching.